I'm sure we'll come up with a better name, but something like two tech co-founders react to crazy smart city concept. So I'm here with Steve, co-founder of PlaceOS.
G'day all, looking forward to this.
So there's so many brand new city concepts we see. They always come up in my LinkedIn feed with all the people in the prop tech business. I think it's an interesting concept, a brand new city, because most cities historically have happened organically, based on usually trade, trade routes. And now cities are popping up in areas they couldn't before, deserts. And the one we're going to look at in particular in Saudi Arabia that's the fact. And I find this interesting because I think eventually Australia should start doing this as well. And there's many challenges starting with a brand new city. And maybe we'll just watch this video and talk about some of those challenges.
Yeah, sounds good.
Steve hasn't seen this video. I've seen bits and pieces because this project is pretty well known.
Contemporary cities couldn't cope with growth.
So we know what a city is, yep.
The contemporary city needs a full redesign.
Now they're going to tell us how they're different.
What if we removed cars?
City without cars?
What if we got rid of streets?
That would be cool.
What if we innovated in the public space?
So straight away, this is something, it's the luxury of a brand new city, where many, look at American cities in particular, where they're built around highways. Sometimes the highway goes through the middle of the city.
Yeah.
And with that comes car parking and car spaces.
And I guess when they're in the middle of a desert, they want to increase green space because you get all that reflective heat or stored energy in things like roads.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they do this in this video, but every new city project I've seen references Singapore. They're like, we're learning from Singapore, applying it to our region. What a lot of people don't realize, though, when they haven't been to Singapore, is just how well suited it is for growing anything. It's so humid that these forest cities and these concepts, that might be a lot harder in the Middle East, I imagine. So let's see if they tackle any of that.
What if we built around nature instead of over it?
Well, it looks forested.
Here we go, yeah.
What if everything
how are they
you
gonna do
needed
that?
was always a 5-minute
Well, I guess
walk away?
there's an underground aquifer or something.
What if invisible technology generates
underground
carefree
traffic.
and open urban space?
So yeah, this concept is very common in these future visions of an infrastructure layer. So all the people are on top and everything else is hidden away.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Again, easy to do in a brand new city, hard to retrofit, hard to tunnel under an existing city.
Yeah,
I mean, particularly historic cities, you do some work in your own property and you find something that halts everything. You might find
ancient ruins.
Yeah, in Australia, Aboriginal artifacts even, or something like that. But or another city that has been forgotten. So that's unlikely to happen in the Middle East. Maybe it's easier to tunnel there as well. But it's...
Well, the Middle East has a lot of history, so who knows?
Yeah.
They might dig into Atlantis.
Well, I think this particular part of the Middle East is just desert. But yeah, maybe there was early tribes or ancient cities or alien spaceships that they'll find when they start
What if
digging.
sustainability was not a goal, but a given? What if we replaced outdated urban services
below
with
the
new
clouds.
services driven by artificial intelligence? What if we built the line? A 170-kilometer revolution in urban living. Protecting the Earth's most stunning nature while creating unmatched livability. A home to all of us. Welcome to the line. Neom.
So the concept of one straight line, I guess, for transport, that's beneficial because you can go very fast in one direction.
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges here is going to be the cultural, let's look at New York City. There's lots of boroughs and communities and neighborhoods, and they all happen organically. Like Soho, for example, it's like the artistic part of town. The Upper East Side is like the older generation, the rich people. The younger generations like being downtown. All of this happens over time based on history. But when you have one straight line, do they just make a decision, well, this is the arts part of town, this is the business part of town?
You might end up with the same thing, because I'm sure it takes a few decades to build. So you'll end up with the old part of town, and then technology's got better, and you've got the next bit of city, which is the modern bit, and all the rich people can move in there, and leaves the artists in the old part of town.
I just think it's hard to plan for culture. You can plan for infrastructure, you can plan for technology, but what is the city about a culture? That's all it is. So the other thing I know about this project, in most new city projects, is they're trying to attract tenants, basically. So they do so with, in this case, in NEOM, tax benefits.
Yeah.
So well, I mean, Singapore was the same thing. So Singapore's a great city with all this sort of the earliest sort of smart city.
So this is meant to be like an international hub.
Yeah.
So the new Silicon Valley, basically, but just in city form.
And without the rules and law that might put people off, Western businesses off from setting up shop in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, really?
So it's got its own, a bit like Hong Kong versus China. You can drink, I imagine. I hope so.
Bars everywhere.
And more progressive ideas that are not tied to their strong religious beliefs.
Okay.
So that will attract business, but you know, people are people. They also just want somewhere fun to live, somewhere with culture. So I think it's going to be hard for a brand new city to sort of reach its vision as fast as they want, because it needs to take time.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably a billionaire's city, right? It looks like you're going to have all that entertainment on the water. So you have your mega yacht and your jet skis, and then slap a theme park out the back. And
and well, I guess they could have sections for that. This whole part of the line is the theme park section.
Yeah, and then the racing section, racing car section, F1.
And the trains are so fast you can get from your office and do a lap at F1 like in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because the bullet train or whatever train technology they use, like a hyperloop type of thing, can get you anywhere from one end to the other in 20 minutes. So the maximum time it takes is 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
That I think presents another challenge, that is like there's such a requirement on that train line. So what if it breaks down?
Well, it looks like they have cars, just underground cars.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard to get away from the Middle East and cars. I mean, it's a luxury car center of the world in terms of people buying those types of cars. There's a culture and an appetite and a love of cars there.
And it's probably delivery services and things like that. I mean, you could have fully autonomous vehicles under there because it's a new city. So you can just be like underground autonomous vehicles. If you want your supercar, it has to be on the outskirt of the city and use dedicated roads or whatever they decide to build. Because I'm sure you need to get to and from the city. So there'll be a highway going somewhere, I assume.
Yeah, and obviously an airport, and it still needs that traditional city infrastructure. But once you get to the city center, it's the vision, it's that dream of one line.
Yeah.
Other cities have tried like a similar concept of just a line for the same benefits, like the new city in mental blank. Live on air, mental blank. Where was the Olympics? They
Tokyo?
speak Portuguese.
Oh,
Brazil.
Okay.
Brasilia? Is Brasilia the name of the city?
No idea.
Well, I don't know. Cut that out. But so I think I'm actually more interested in these concepts on what we can learn and apply to existing cities, because it's, these new cities come up every 10 years, every 20 years, maybe more aggressively in China, but it's hard to see if they're successful. It's hard to know. It will take time to know if any of these new cities are successful.
Well, if it is successful, you might see a lot of them popping up in, say, Africa, which has the projected population growth to support this kind of new city infrastructure.
Or even extensions to existing cities. So here in Sydney, that's a good segue. We have 2 cities currently, Sydney, CBD, and Parramatta. And there's a third projected city where the new airport's going to be.
It's out near Penrith.
Yeah. And they basically make this sort of triangle, everything in the middle are suburbs, and then we have 3 city centres. And that's something that's sort of on trend with lots of existing cities where you need to support the growth of the city. And Sydney in particular has grown pretty quickly because it's relatively new city compared to New York and London and others. But the immigration and the population growth here has been consistent, and economic growth has been consistent even in downturn in economic times around the world. So we can take these concepts and apply them to existing cities and pick and choose what works and what doesn't. But it's great to see these countries take the risk in investing $1 trillion and just building a new city.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you've got to invest it somewhere when you've got that much money.
Yeah, and diversify your if you build a city, it attracts other industries.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming they're going to focus heavily on solar. Yeah, and they've really got to move towards that as the oil industry sort of dries up or turns down.
And well, I mean, if you create a city, you're just creating economics. You'll have people investing in everything. So biotech, software, maybe this will be the Silicon Valley of the Middle East because they have so much money to invest in it.
Yeah.
But maybe they get distracted by building a shiny new city and not just imagine if they gave that much money to us to invest in software, maybe we could do things with bigger impact than this one city that may or may not work. And that's the criticism of this NEOM project is it has the potential to bankrupt the Saudi Arabia government because it's going to require so much capital.
Yeah, definitely.
What's your favorite city you've been to in terms of seeing some of these concepts that have actually been implemented and work?
Seeing it implemented.
Anything, like I'll give my example first. So you see these artist impression videos and then you often go to these buildings or these precincts or the cities and it's nothing like the vision.
Yeah.
I think the closest anything's come to the vision I've seen is actually here in Sydney at Barangaroo.
Okay.
You go down there and it actually is what they promised.
Well, it's got the cafes and the restaurants and things.
It's well connected to transport. People like going there. You can get the ferry. I have friends that get the ferry on the harbour to Barangaroo. And it's like the 20 minutes and a nice way to get to work. Shopping centres and everything you need there. And then a connection to the CBD, and because it's on the outskirts of the CBD.
Yeah, I mean, it's much nicer than the CBD itself. Like, it's easier, because it's very much foot traffic focused versus cars. So, I agree. It's a much nicer experience than the actual city.
Yeah.
But in terms of cities that I've been to that have been implementing that sort of thing, I'd probably look at something like, not the CBD of Paris, but the sort of the suburbs of Paris, which are very much focused on people. It's a green city, in my opinion. Has the canals. It's very picturesque.
Well, this all comes down to culture, right? And I remember being in Paris once. It was a friend's birthday, and so we were having cheese and wine just in the public space, and some French guy came past. Somehow knew we weren't French. Maybe we're a dead giveaway. But he's like, "Oh, the reason you guys can enjoy this is because of the French people and us paying taxes." And so then he grabs our bottle of wine and takes a swig, puts it down and keeps walking because he felt entitled to it because of their socialist culture of this space is for everybody.
I like that he told you why he was taking a swig first.
But that's an extreme example of that in Paris. But there's other reasons. City planning, they've maintained their heritage. They haven't built high rises and just random spots.
Yeah, definitely.
But they have that sense of neighborhood as well. So just like New York City, it attracts different neighborhoods, attract different types of people, and it all has its own community vibe, which these new cities I don't think will get for a long time. You can't plan for that. And
yeah, I mean, this sort of looks a bit dystopian. If you've seen that movie Skyrise, or The Skyrise, I think.
Oh, that's a terrible movie.
But it was a great book.
Is that where they're like it's an action movie, and I think they film it in Hong Kong.
And they've got
in a fake building.
at various levels they have different services, but then people live on the other levels, and the bottom levels are the least, the poorest people, and the richer up the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that is sort of the future we're looking at with a city like this, where people, the sense of community is not there. So they're going to have to do something to really encourage people to communicate and be nice to each other.
And maybe the sense of community is replaced by the sense of security. And they'd rather be on level 50 so no one can get to them, because it's a safer place to be. And everyone's just in this bubble of being in the home now. I think even Sydney has the same thing, sense of community. You choose where you choose the area for your lifestyle. And if the lifestyle is just this one singular vision by a city planner, it's not going to happen. It's not going to work.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the green spaces, so it will come down to activities, right? Keeping people occupied and trying, I don't know, how do you separate work and lifestyle in a city like that?
Yeah.
It's going to have a lot of entertainment.
Or how do you do maybe the opposite, not separate them, but merge? Everything has blurred lines now, the way we work, the way we live. Like the workplace isn't suitable anymore, where we live isn't suitable anymore. There's like all of these challenges, and all of these cities are planning for 10, 20 years into the future, when 3 years ago we thought, workplaces thought they knew what was going on. So that's the other hard thing. It's like you can only plan so much.
And I guess there's the potential for social problems because it's an experiment. So do they have a plan for the homeless? How are they going to prevent the city turning into a slum?
I think there'll be very little tolerance for homeless in the Saudi Arabian city. But I mean, it's almost like you have to plan for a little bit of that. And how do you? The luxury of a brand new city is maybe you can get ahead of that before it's a problem. How do we prevent homelessness rather than most cities have the opposite problem? How do we help homeless people?
Yeah, but I mean, there's always going to be homelessness. People will become destitute because their Silicon Valley-esque startup failed. So then how do you support them and get them back into the workplace before they become completely destitute? And no one wants to hire them.
And I think, so the other sort of impact of these cities is environmental. So you would assume a desert, there's little impact. There'll be some cultural impact. There's some criticism with this NEOM project with tribes. So some of the oldest tribes in the world that will be disrupted. Environmentally, maybe this is the future of cities. So there might be some short-term impact for long-term gain. Because it can be self-sufficient, run on green energy.
And green energy powering desalination for water. It could be very interesting. Then
there's fundamental problems with new cities, lack of sand. So cement, this is one of the biggest problems in the industry right now. There's not enough cement to make cities. So there's got to be more investment in the fundamental building materials. And this is where like technology can play a role.
Because there's a lot of sand there. It just needs to be finer.
It's not the quality of sand for cement. But the promise of digital twins starting at that level, the building material level, that you can simulate, plan for.
You're getting into Factorio territory now.
But this is the promise of what if I build everything out of this particular material? You simulate it with all of the data. You could even plug in real world city data from another city and see how it applies.
And I've assumed they've picked the area for lack of earthquakes and tsunamis and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, location, that's the other key part of a city. As we said, it used to be based on physical trade, where most of the cities sort of had shipping routes, but this is proximity to the coastline, and then a connection between certain parts of Saudi Arabia that are not connected right now. So yeah, I mean, this was just our 2 cents on a short video on The Line, an interesting project. There's so many new cities in the works, so many other future visions. I mean, this one has the capital, so Saudi Arabia is probably going to make this happen. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly. That's my only question. And how quickly is it going to be livable and actually like attractive enough for diversity and not just a bunch of rich people that go in and want tax havens.
Yeah. I mean, tax havens work though in terms of building up a nice rich city that you can put on a pedestal somewhere.
I agree with that. But it's almost, you said Paris is one of your favorite cities for the way they've implemented the city.
Yeah.
I mean, this is almost the opposite of Paris.
100%.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it'll be a tourist city anytime soon.
Yeah. But even like what makes Paris great is the socialist elements, but that makes it pretty poor for business. Where this will be attracting business, but doesn't have the cultural elements to attract tourism and people that are more into living in Paris. Because you just go live in Paris, why do move to The Line?
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. That's all we wanted to cover today.